Hello everybody. Just thought I'd do a fairly quick video here geared specifically for new van dwellers or those people who are looking into getting into van dwelling, for some considerations you might want to have in mind if you're thinking about it. This is based upon about 6 or 7 years of living in a van on and off. I know a lot of you have been following me in a Little Blue for the last like 2 years or so. This has probably been the longest stint that I've had to live in a van on and off. Like right now I'm currently living about 90% in the van, and then the other 10% I'm actually at Walter's house. But anyhow, wanted to give you some pointers if you're considering this lifestyle or considering living in a van for whatever reason. And these are things that I think are important to keep in mind. The first is the reason. Number one, okay? Number one, what is the reason you are wanting to live in a van? Because that, to an extent, will determine a lot of what happens next. You know, what you do, what kind of van you get, and whatnot. If you are doing this as an emergency measure, okay, and you know it's a temporary basis, then the van that you get may not really be that important, okay? A van is shelter at that point. You're looking at shelter from the rain, the cold, and everything else. So in that instance, if you don't have a van already, I would get whatever van I could find. A small minivan would allow you to drive around town and stealth camp a little bit more easily. A larger van gives you a lot more room, but maybe a little bit harder to stealth camp, and of course will be a bit more expensive in terms of gasoline usage. So that, to an extent, already will determine, basically what kind of vehicle you're going to get. Now, if you're thinking of full-time living in a van, as in this is your home, at least for an extended period, I would recommend getting the largest van you could get. For the simple fact that it'll give you more space. You'll be able to configure the van with a bedroom, a kitchen, possibly a bathroom, if you get a full-size van. Whereas a minivan, the only thing it's really going to have is room for sleeping, And of course, if you rig it like you did Little Blue, you could actually have a kitchenette in it. In the case of Little Blue, there was actually 2 kitchenettes, one up front and one in the back. The back one has since been disabled. I've taken it apart and changed the van now because it has to suit my immediate needs, which is a vehicle for hauling inventory for my work. But the van still has a built-in bed and a little kitchenette up front. And I find those are the most important things to have in a van. So you'll need to consider that. Basically, what your plan is, if it's to live full-time or part-time. For part-time, you could go with full or minivan, depending, okay? If you go camping and stuff and like have space and you're not really traveling really far, I would recommend a full-size van. But if on the other hand, if you're traveling around the country, there's a benefit to a full-size van in the sense that you have all that space, but the drawback is gasoline usage. Now, Little Blue 2 is a minivan and it's not operating at its peak right now, so she's only getting between 12 to 15 miles per gallon. Now, her normal miles per gallon that she was supposed to get was about 18 to 25. I haven't seen that. And the reason I haven't seen that is she's having, mechanical issues. But a full-size van might get you as low as 8 miles per gallon. You can probably count on about 8 to 14 miles per gallon for a full-size van. And a minivan, you might get upwards of 18 to 25. So that can make a difference, because if you're traveling across the whole country, doing a circuit or whatever, just going across the United States or across Europe or wherever you live, gas can become an issue. So in that case, for travel, like if your main purpose is traveling, I would recommend a minivan. The reason for the minivan is just simply you're traveling to see things and do things, not to live out of the van. You're only using the van as basically a bed, you know, so you can sleep at night and save on hotel costs. And the van should also ideally have the ability to cook food. So you can cook food, and it may have an emergency bathroom if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you know don't have access to a bathroom. So those are the critical things that I really think are important, you know, when determining what kind of van you want to get. And it all boils down to purpose, you know. If the purpose is to live in a van, I would go as large as possible and build it out to be basically a tiny house on wheels. If the purpose is to travel, I would go with the most economical one possible, which is, I think, minivans. And of course, it depends on how many people. Now, Little Blue 2 is a 2003 Dodge Grand Caravan, and for one person, it's been way more than adequate. You know, I've got plenty of space, but I haven't really tried with 2 people in it yet. Now, my wife and I are planning on taking our delayed honeymoon in it, at least part of the honeymoon. So we're going to find out how well this minivan does with 2 people in it. It's been designed for 2 people, not for full-time living, but for traveling and for what I'm hoping to do right now, which is limited camping in it. You know, stealth camping, as well as maybe camping in BLM or you know, national parks and things like that allow camping, overnight camping. So those are the big factors. I think the most important factor to consider when getting a van is, or building out your van, is the bed itself. I mean, when you look down, you know, what it comes down to is the van is your bed, your bedroom. It's where you're going to spend most of your time sleeping if you're living in it. Now, the other thing that some people might want to keep in mind is that, you know, say living in a van, you're really not living in the van. Thinking that you're going to stay in the van all day long, even if you have one of those giant Sprinter vans, I think you're going to end up feeling caged, you know. Even those big vans, the Sprinter vans, they're small compared to like a house or being outside. And all you're going to do is stay in that little box. I don't think that's really for a vehicle. I think one of the biggest benefits of living in a vehicle like a van is that you can travel in it. You can go to different places, you know, so you can see things. And if that's the case, you definitely don't want to be living in the van. You want to be living out of the van. So the van is designed mainly, from my perspective, for sleeping. You know, it should have a very comfortable bed. Yeah, you should get the most comfortable bed that you can fit in there, because that's what you're going to be doing in it. Then the second most important feature of the van is basically the ability to cook food. And the reason you want to be able to cook food in, or, you know, using the van or around the van or whatever, is to save money. I mean, the whole point of van living is cutting down on expenses. So those are the 2 critical things, I think: having a bed and having a kitchen of some sort, a kitchenette. Then the third thing would be a bathroom, if you can put one in there. You know, bathroom can be as simple as a paint can, you know, one of those like 5-gallon paint cans with the topper, or you can just use the lid. I don't know, make a little seat or something yourself. If you watch previous videos, I actually put a real toilet seat on one of those things for Little Blue 2 to be used as an emergency toilet. Now, me personally, I don't really believe in going to the bathroom inside the van unless you absolutely have to, like an absolute emergency. You know, so you have the benefit of being able to use the van as a bathroom, but in all honesty, that seldom happens unless you're feeling sick and you didn't plan very well. I try to use public facilities. Speaking of which, one of the issues that comes up with van dwelling is staying clean, you know. Some people recommend using those baby wipes. Me personally, I think that the best thing to use isn't baby wipes, but joining a nationwide fitness facility. You know, like for me, I use Planet Fitness, so showering and staying clean is not an issue. I know a lot of people get really interested in building in a shower in a van, and they even hook up a water system with instant heat and all that. That's all nice and good, but I don't know if that's really necessary. It's a lot of overhead, and can generally be very expensive unless you do it yourself with, you know, jimmy rigging things, which I've shown, you know, on previous episodes how Little Blue 2 can support a shower system. It's something that's nifty and might make your van kind of cool, but there's some major drawbacks to it. One, you're giving up space that's primarily used for showering and maybe a bathroom. In the case of using it as a shower and a bathroom, it becomes a little bit more versatile because it's serving two functions. But you know, then you still have to deal with the issue of waste disposal, which would occur even if you're using a paint can. But you know, one of those little, or camping toilets. But it's just easier to use a bathroom outside of the van, and you don't have to deal with it. And if you're a member of Planet Fitness or 24-Hour Fitness or LA Fitness, whatever, one of these chains, you can shower whenever you want for as long as you want, and you can have all the hot water you want, which is an issue when you're in a van trying to get hot water. You either are going to have to go off floor heating or some kind of propane system to heat your water, unless you somehow rig the water system to get heated up through the engine, you know, while you're running. But it can get a little bit complicated. I like to keep things simple. That's the whole point of living in a van, is to try to simplify things. So even with like a kitchen build, I typically don't install like water, you know, that can be turned on and off. I just prefer to use a jug, you know, and just pour the water and wash my hands outside the vehicle, instead of having to deal with hauling around gray water, clean water, gray water, black water, and all that other stuff that you would do in an RV or full-blown camper. The whole point of van living for me is keeping things simple. So, you know, I think not installing all these complicated systems, you know, while the van may not look as impressive as one that you have a kitchen sink that you can turn on and off by moving the lever, or a shower system that, you know, actually works like a home shower, I would rather do that at Planet Fitness. It's a full-size shower with as much hot water as I want. The bathroom's a full-size bathroom, and I don't have to haul around basically waste, you know? So those are just my personal thoughts, okay? So with that said, that's pretty much it, you know? The other issue that has to do with food itself, because, you know, you're talking about trying to live in the van, which means eating. Once again, I don't think eating in the van is the best option, you know? I like to eat at a park somewhere. Generally, I'll try to pull out, you know, to a park and eat, like pull over and eat, or you can even get outside and eat at a picnic bench or something. But on occasions like where I'm right now, like urban stealth camping, and I'm kind of stuck in the city because of work, sometimes I will eat in the van itself. And in that case, that means hauling food around. Now, I know there are people who will spend upwards of like $600-800 on those 12-volt refrigerators and freezers. I think they're called Domestics. I really don't think it's worth it. You're paying like $800, $600-800 for a freezer or a refrigerator? It may be worth it if you're full-time living, and this is your home, you know, not a vehicle that you're part-time living or just temporarily living in. I don't think $800 is a good use of that. But, you know, there are people who do full-time and they love it because it is their home and they stay in it 24/7. For me, for my current circumstances, I think having a 12-volt cooler, like I have one that's a console cooler, is very useful. And my wife just got me one of those little small Igloo 12-volt coolers that I'll be using to cool sodas and whatnot, small little items. So those are useful. As far as keeping food itself cold, I think a cheap little cooler, like an igloo cooler, you know, the plastic ones with foam insulation are more than adequate. If you get one of those and you put a bag of ice in it, the ice will last about depending on it depends a lot on the ambient temperature, the temperature outside. But typically, my experience, at least in Florida, you know, was that the ice will stay icy for about 2 days, 3 days. Now, if you insulate that that cooler, maybe get a double layer, maybe use 2 coolers, it might even stay a full week, you know. And of course, it depends on how often you open it up. But what I found is, if you're urban stealth camping, food's not so much an issue, because you can see, like right now we're in a city, all you have to do is pull into Publix, Walmart, Winn-Dixie or whatever, Aldi's, somewhere, and you got fresh food. Well, not really fresh, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But you can pull over there and get that food and buy it for that day and cook it up. And you don't even have to worry about storage. It's been refrigerated in the store for you. You know, so you don't have to carry that. The only storage you're going to need is leftovers. And hopefully you're eating the leftovers within 1 day, maybe 2 days at the most. So the ice cooler should be more than adequate. In little Blue 2's case, my little minivan that we're in right now, I don't even have an ice cooler. I just have my little 12-volt cooler, which is enough to hold food for like 1 day. And it's because I don't really carry food for more than 1 day. I could carry some, like noodles, rice, and other stuff. I mean, I have some stuff that I carry for about a week, you know, worth of supplies. But for the most part, fresh things like meat and vegetables, fruits, I don't really carry for more than a day. So, I hope I didn't miss my exit. I've been talking, and now I have no clue where I am. Anyhow, I'm kind of rambling right now, but I hope that I gave you some insight on what I think are like some important things to consider when deciding on what kind of van you want to get and what kind of build you want to do. You have ideas on YouTube as well as various face groups. So you might want to peruse through those things, look and get your ideas. But the big determination is going to be your particular. It will have a lot to do with it. If you've got a lot of money, heck yeah, go all out. Get one of those high-top sprinters and deck it out and put in all the latest gadgets. On a very tight budget, I think a minivan is more than adequate, even for full-time living for a single person, and really good on gas mileage as opposed to a full-size vehicle. But, you know, you trade off that, that savings in terms of living space. But truly, you can see the van in front of me. That's a full-size van. That's really not much more room than this minivan. You know, it's a full-size van. It uses up more gasoline, but inside the vehicle, unless you have a high top, you're not really going to get that much more living space. And like I said, you know, the biggest use I think for the van is for sleeping, eating, and that's pretty much it, and traveling. So don't forget that. I think one of the biggest, absolute biggest benefits of living in a van is you can travel and you can see things for cheap. So until next time, everybody, I hope you found this information that I presented here somewhat useful, and we'll use it when you're considering building your own vehicle out and purchasing a vehicle and determining exactly what you want to do. Until next time, everybody, take care.